But that pipeline, talking about that pipeline, that's interesting that you're already doing that, because we've used a guy called Jeff Grout on a number of occasions with the forum, and one of the things he talks about, he's a recruitment specialist, is always having people who you can go back to, always having a pipeline of people. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to go out and advertise and do the usual things, but actually if you've got people you can turn to, it's always useful. I know that Emily and Joanna, you're kind of sharing, you've both done similar things in terms of interns and work experience. What are the challenges with that? But also, I know that one of the other things that you're doing is you're sharing somebody at the moment, I think, aren't you?
We're still yet to swap them, but it's all in place, and Emily has somebody that's working for her who wants to come and do some work experience with me and would like to learn more about the trend forecasting industry. And Emily and I have had loads of conversations about how we run our businesses and what type of things we do. And there were a few things that I thought, I'm kind of really interested in how to build the business culture and what type of things I should be looking for and adopting into my business. And there were a few things that Emily did, and I thought, God, that would just work so well for us. They're different businesses, but just the way that she runs her business, there are things there that I think we could really learn from. And for me to be able to put somebody in Emily's business and learn how she does things, I think would be really fascinating. So we're going to do a bit of a swap, really. And that kind of inspired us to think in a broader scale as well, because one of the jobs that I'm going to be employing for the future will be an account manager. And I've worked with account managers over the past sort of 13, 14 years, but I don't really know what an account manager does, but I know I'm going to need one. So what I want to do is to go and to shadow an account manager and learn as much about their job as I possibly can, so that I know what I'm looking for. So yeah, there are all sorts of existing methods and ways of doing things out there. It's just trying to find the ones that work best for your business, I guess. So
I'm intrigued to know what it was that you were doing within the business that Joanna wanted to do.
On Friday afternoons, because we do a lot of sewing by hand and we all sit and chat, and on a Friday afternoon we actually sit and watch a DVD while we're doing it. Things like Project Runway, where they're sitting and sewing, is a favourite. So it's a really nice time where we can relax, and we're all still working, but it's something that's kind of bonding, and it gives us something that we'll all chat about and everything. So it kind of contrasts with the sort of high stress moments where we've got orders going out and everybody's sitting really, really focused. It's a sort of a more relaxed atmosphere where we can sort of talk about the more creative things and just...
And it contrasts greatly with my kind of Mike Baldwin sweatshop style of swatch cutting, which is really, it's a very intense period where we have to cut lots of fabric, and there's a lot of kind of swatches and things everywhere. It's very chaotic, very busy time, and it's not calm at all. It's the busiest point in the season. We've got consultancy clients in, we've got all sorts of things happening. And it was when Emily described that to me, I thought, well, that's the kind of thing that for a new employee or a student coming on placement into my business, to have that type of environment to do that job in. I mean, we get students in who maybe cut fabrics for 3 or 4 weeks. That's all they're going to do for 3 or 4 weeks. But to be able to do that in an environment that's inspiring and that tells them something about the business in a bigger picture, when we are hoping that they're going to be part of our business in 5 years, 6 years' time, is really important. So that was something that I'm just really keen to learn. Can we learn something from that type of process, and can we bring something like that into our business whereby it takes the chaos element out? And it should be a fun job to do, but it isn't at the minute. It's problematic. So that was the secret.
I think it shows as well that it's, as an ongoing thing, it's a huge learning process. A number of years down the line as well, we're still learning about how we can be changing things and how we can provide support to employees as well.
And one of the things I wanted to kind of come back to, which I guess we've already touched on a little, is, when you start out, it's yours. It's you. It's your vision, it's your passion, it's your baby kind of thing. How did it feel sharing a bit of that or giving a bit of that away, but equally, what did you do to make sure that the people who were coming on board shared some of that and could kind of build on what you'd already built?
I think it's a bit about instinct. I mean, touching again on the sort of interviewing, like sort of Joanna said, it's the enthusiasm and the kind of sharing your values and passion for the business, I think is more important sometimes than the sort of literal skills, because you can teach someone the skills, but you can't teach someone to love what you love and to love the business. And, you know, one of the girls I've got working for me at the moment, while she's still finishing her degree, I can't wait to take her on as a full-time employee. And I mean, on paper, she didn't stand out. Her interview was very unique, but she was very, very quiet and shy, and she probably didn't tick a lot of the boxes that you would look for when you're interviewing someone. But I kind of trusted my instinct. There was something about her that was special, and she's absolutely brilliant. I want to kind of clone her and have a few more of her. She's wonderful. So I think that in that respect, finding people that sort of love what you love, you know, is sometimes more important than the qualifications they have and things like that. And once they come into the business, I think it's great being able to have someone else who's passionate about it. And although it can be sometimes difficult when you're first kind of relinquishing control, I think it's actually more rewarding having employees to kind of share it with than just doing it on your own.
And I know you talked about, you know, the checklists, the books, the processes. This is how we do things. Yeah. This is how we do things the Trend Bible way. Well, I was going to. But how did you get what Trend Bible means to you across to other people?
That's an ongoing thing, I would say. I don't think I've managed to close the book on that, and I don't think I ever will, because it's a very hard thing, especially because of the type of business that I'm in, where we're forecasting trends, but we're also putting a very particular creative slant on things, which I said is about this particular taste level. And we're trying to show our customers, look, these are the trends for the future, but this is how we think they should be, and this is the type of colour palettes that we would pull together. So when I've been looking for somebody, it's to be able to have that same vision and be able to sort of pull out the same visuals and creative elements that I would pull out myself. It is about matching those creative skills with my own, because that's what I've built the brand on. And so it becomes, I think it makes it easy to find the person with the right creative skills. You can find out whether they've got those skills and whether that matches what you're looking for. But I think there are obviously other skills that they need to bring to the table and other attitudes they need to bring to the table along with that. So you're not just looking for somebody who's creatively very good. I need somebody who can do presentations to sort of 50 to 100 people in a room in the future, not yet, but I plan on those people being able to do all of those things that I have to do at the moment, but I need to hand those aspects of the job out as well. So they need to be really sort of multi-skilled in a lot of ways, and that's quite difficult, because sometimes you're going to get 50% of that in one person and you might think you have to go elsewhere for that. But again, that's where my kind of freelance network can plug those gaps at the moment. So it helps in that respect.
Okay. And 250 people, do you feel a lot further away from where you started, if that makes sense? Do you feel as though, you know, how many of these people who are working for us really understand where this all came from?
Yeah. We up until the last year, I mean, we've been operating for over 5 years now, and up until the last year, Jonathan and I were extremely heavily involved in the training of new staff. And what that meant was we could get that vision across to new staff coming in, and as I mentioned earlier, you know, really kind of put across the culture of the organisation and what our expectations were, and the sort of quality and standards of care and support that we wanted to provide to service users. And that was hugely beneficial. And last year, similar to Joanna, we had a year whereby it wasn't about growth and it wasn't about expansion. It was about concentrating inwards, internally, and looking at systems and processes and quality, how we could be improving, you know, areas right across the board. And as a result of that, you know, we felt moving into this year, we were a lot more confident about the systems that we had in place. And by investing a lot of that time into our managers, it meant that the managers are now the people who are doing the recruitment, and the managers are getting across, you know, the ethos and the culture of the organisation as well. So we have a lot of support systems in place for our managers, and, you know, we have managers' days and where they all come together from all regions to spend some time with each other, to learn from each other and share best practice. But equally wise for our staff as well, and just this year, you know, we've introduced some staff awards for both core staff and for staff who are kind of working out in the community with our service users. And what that meant is, you know, some of the kind of, you know, the unsung heroes, the staff who kind of get their head down and crack on with the job are getting that recognition now. And we include service users in the training of our staff as well. So that gets across, you know, the sort of expectations, and from our service users' points of view, what they want from staff as well, which is really important.
Yeah. So how does it feel, you two not being Employee of the Month anymore? Every month? I want to finish on one final question, and that's kind of, what's the best piece of advice you've been given relating to taking people on? And what's the one piece of advice that you would give to other people?
I think the best piece of advice I've been given, and this is something that I can't even tell you who gave me this advice, but it's kind of been consistent in all the business books I've read and all of the talks that I've been to at the forum and things like that. The best piece of advice is to define your own role, really, so that when you take people on, you know what you're going to do. And my job within my business is to be a leader and lead the business, and that requires me to have a certain set of skills, and that's going to be very different to what everybody else is doing in the business. And there are some days where that makes everybody in the studio very busy doing the hands-on stuff, and it makes me kind of, you know, sitting there thinking and planning and doing things that are very different and non-immediate. You have to put those priorities in place, really, in terms of there are urgent things to do, and then there are things that I need to think about, which are the long-term things. So the urgent stuff, which might be getting a client job out for tomorrow, isn't my concern anymore. That is something that hands over to the team, and they deal with that really, really well. So I would say that would be my piece of advice, is that when you run a business, you're there to lead, and you've got to lead from the front. You need to understand what leadership really means. And I don't think I've sussed that at all, but I'm actively trying to figure out what that means for me and what that's going to look like within my business. And so I think it's about profiling my own sort of job in that respect. I'd pass that on.
I think the best piece of advice someone gave me before I took on my first employee was, they said, look for someone who you would like to work with, and then sort of build the role around that, because they said you can train them in the skills and fit them into the role that you want, but as far as personality and things like that, that's not something you're going to be able to change. So looking for people that you want to work with is the thing that you should be looking at more than perhaps their literal skills, and I think that's a really good one. And I think that was the advice that I would give as well, is trust your instincts. People that might look perfect on paper, I think sometimes you just know that they're not quite right. And when I have employed someone who, she was just way more perfect than anyone else on paper, she interviewed perfectly, and deep down, like I said to people when I came to her, she's perfect, there's something I can't quite put my finger on, but I'll give her a go anyway, and it didn't work out. And I think that's the thing. I think sometimes you have like a sixth sense about who is right for your company because you know it so well, and trusting that saves a lot of time.
For us, it was about seeing how someone works in practice and making sure that, you know, someone's personality is right for the job. Again, because, you know, skills and experience can be provided as a specialist organisation. And I think the best advice that I would give is to really invest in any new members of staff. You know, the time with regards to supervision, mentorship, training, because that'll pay off tenfold, you know, kind of further on down the line. I think if you were to take that almost kind of scattergun approach of bringing in a new member of staff whilst you're spinning 1,000 other plates, it doesn't work. Investing that time and that energy into that member of staff is absolutely key.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Kelly, Emily and Joanna. Thank you all, and I think we've got some food and drink at the back. Please feel free to ask more questions, share more experiences with each other. One quick plug, for anybody who isn't already aware of it, we run a thing called the If We Can, You Can Challenge each year, which Emily and Joanna happened to win last year. It's anchored in the regional media, so we're very fortunate that we get almost guaranteed coverage on a weekly basis for the next 6 weeks, I think, is it, Hazel, or so, until the finals process. We'd welcome anybody entering that. We'd welcome anybody getting involved with If We Can, You Can, and that's whether you're just starting out or whether you're employing 250 people. So take a look at that. There's some leaflets about it. I know that there are Newcastle Business Forum magazines, so pick up one of those. And if you've got any questions on the Federation of Small Businesses and what they can do for you, then Simon's here at the front. So thank you very much indeed, and enjoy talking to each other and mixing.